Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. The Royal Commission into allegations against New South Wales Premier Neville Wran opened in Sydney today, and already there have been some startling disclosures, and that story heads our programme tonight. We'll also be examining criticism of the findings of the Stewart Drug Commission, and later in the programme I'll be talking in our studio with Welfare Minister Terry White about criticisms of Queensland's prisons. But first, the Wran Royal Commission. The Royal Commission into allegations against Premier Neville Wran began taking evidence today on charges telecast last month by the ABC Four Corners programme. The Commission is investigating whether former Chief Stipendiary Magistrate Murray Farquhar influenced a court hearing involving ex-League boss Kevin Humphreys, and if so, whether Premier Wran asked him to do it. Today, two senior magistrates gave evidence about an alleged phone call from the Premier to Mr Farquhar. A third said a written report was ignored by his superiors.
For the Premier, Neville Wran, former Chief Magistrate Murray Farquhar, and the once rugby league boss Kevin Humphreys, it was the start of a day they'd been preparing for since that Four Corners program on April the 30th. The Royal Commissioner, Sir Lawrence Street, has suspended his usual duties as Chief Justice of New South Wales to head the inquiry. Today he called the first evidence. It came in the form of a letter written by Kevin Jones, the magistrate who heard and eventually dismissed the charges against Kevin Humphreys. In it, Mr Jones says the former Chief Magistrate Murray Farquhar called him aside before the start of the hearing on the 11th of August 1977. According to Mr Jones, this is what Mr Farquhar said. The Premier contacted me and he wants Humphreys discharged. Mr Jones said he was stunned and decided to go ahead with the hearing and deal with it on its merits. He'll give direct evidence to the Commission sometime next week. The first witness to give evidence today was Kevin Waller, one of the state's most senior magistrates. He said Mr Farquhar's assistant came into the room on that day in 1977 and said in front of several magistrates, "Mr Farquhar, the Premier is on the phone." About 30 minutes later, he saw Mr Farquhar call Magistrate Jones into his office for a private talk. After that meeting, Mr Waller said Mr Jones told him, "You'll never guess what has happened. Wran has told Farquhar the government has no interest in seeing Humphreys go to trial." Mr Waller replied, "Stuff, Wran, just do the case. If they want to pull it out, let them do it up there." In other words, he explained to the Commission the government could file a no bill and the charges would be dropped. Mr Waller said he was very annoyed and told perhaps a dozen people about it over several years, but lately thought the issue had died. Mr Waller told the Commission today that he had been approached in April by two members of the ABC's Four Corners team. He had several meetings with them, 3 in all, and the information that he passed on to them was eventually used in that Four Corners program, which triggered the Royal Commission. Alex Shan QC, representing Mr Wran, then cross-examined Magistrate Waller and suggested there may have been no phone call and that someone was just using the Premier's name. Mr Waller said perhaps that was right, but he was reporting only what he'd heard. It was also revealed today that another former senior magistrate, Mr Wal Lua, had reported the alleged interference in the Humphreys case to the then head of the Public Service Board back in 1979, but nothing was ever made public. Mr Lua will be called before the Royal Commission to give evidence tomorrow.
Police forces throughout Australia had a who, us, reaction today to accusations of corruption outlined in the Stewart Royal Commission. In Brisbane, Queensland Police Union President, Senior Sergeant Cole Chant, said the generalisations left a taint on all police.
Against Queensland policemen that they should have probably presented some indictments and gone further with it than just making general submissions that these things are rife in the community or in the police community.
Politically, the Commission findings have had a varied reaction. Victoria and New South Wales have backed a joint nationally sponsored effort to fight drug trafficking. Here, Premier Joh Bjelke-Petersen continues to oppose the establishment of a National Crimes Commission, which seemingly puts him at odds with his own police minister.
I think any government that is informed of problem areas should be prepared to look realistically and say we could change our mind.
In Townsville, reaction to Commission suggestions that North Queensland is Australia's major drug link to the outside world today brought mixed thoughts, as Rick Anderton reports.
Police and undercover agents in North Queensland have been acutely aware of the drug problem for some time, and in 1981 a special squad of police swooped on the Cape Tribulation area following reports of massive drug dealings in the area. The result, a major seizure of drugs, although the ringleaders of the plantation had fled from the scene only hours earlier. But it was only to be one of the major discoveries in the north in the next 18 months. West of Townsville, a major haul of marijuana was uncovered outside of Charters Towers. The major discoveries were coupled with several unsolved murders in the north, with the most puzzling the fatal shooting of a couple at Gelatin in the Tablelands. Over the past 2 years, police in the north have been pressing for what they term as urgent reinforcements to help bolster patrols in what they describe as one of the largest and most inaccessible areas in Australia.
A 34-year-old Jindalee man today was told he was unfit for human society by a Supreme Court judge who had just sentenced him to life imprisonment for murder. Gregory James Clark of Trevery Street, Jindalee, had been found guilty to the murder last year of Inala taxi driver Georgina Jensen.
36-year-old Mrs. Jensen, a mother of two who drove cabs on a casual basis to help supplement her family income, picked up a fare at the Richlands Tavern late at night on the 29th of May last year. Her body was found in long grass at Wacol next day. Police evidence was that Mrs. Jensen had been stabbed 20 times, including a close grouping of 11 wounds in the centre of the back. 6 days later, Clark appeared in the Western District's Magistrates Court at Inala, charged with her murder. Passing sentence today, Mr. Justice Connolly told Clark in the Supreme Court that he was unfit for human society, and if he ever came up for parole, he, as trial judge, would recommend that the accused never be released. Clark has now begun that life sentence. In Darwin, Lindy Chamberlain, convicted for the murder of her 10-week-old daughter Azaria, has been refused an application to have her baby daughter Kalia with her in jail. The baby, now 6 months old, is living with her father, Michael Chamberlain, and brothers Aidan and Regan near Newcastle. On the decision to turn down the application, Northern Territory Minister for Community Development, Ian Tuxworth, said inquiries revealed that Kalia was already living in a loving and caring environment. Warren Clark for Newsnight.
3 people were extradited from Townsville today in connection with an armed robbery in Sydney. They'll appear in the Waverley Court of Petty Sessions in Sydney tomorrow. Robert Dean reports.
27-year-old Shane Spenlove appeared in Townsville Magistrates Court charged with murder and armed robbery, while 24-year-old Gillian Ricketts was charged with being an accessory after the fact and armed robbery. A third man, Russell Keith Green, faced the same charges as Spenlove. Green was charged in Ingham Magistrates Court and was extradited from Townsville on a later flight from the other two. Spenlove and Ricketts were in the custody of Sydney detectives when they arrived at Townsville Airport this afternoon. When they appeared in court earlier, neither gave any evidence or asked questions while in the dock. Spenlove and Green have both been charged with the murder of chemist Richard Michael Clanchy on the 23rd of May at Double Bay in Sydney. Green was intercepted by detectives who stopped a Greyhound bus near Cardwell, while the other two were caught in Townsville.
Are prisoners in Queensland jails getting a rough deal? Welfare Services Minister Terry White thinks just the opposite. In fact, he thinks there is too much emphasis these days on the plight of the criminal and not enough on the plight of the victim. Mr. White will be joining me in the studio right after this break.
A steak is not so great without a scrape. And when you lump it on a crumpet, you got taste. And veggie get the breast if left undressed. And it helps to make the cake you bake the best. Oh yes! The more you spread it round, the more you see. Why Australia's #1 is Meadowlee. Wait till they taste it. You ought to be congratulated.
Shelley is a beautiful cat. Well, I started her off as a kitten on Whiskers. I found she liked it. I've tried her on a few other things and she won't eat them, so Whiskers it is. I'm sure she likes the different varieties. The texture is good. And I think Whiskers must have everything that a cat needs. You've only got to look at Shelley's coat. And she's never been sick in her life.
Did your cat get his Whiskers today? And did you win with Whiskers today? There's $50,000 in cash prizes. Details on Whiskers labels now.
Show us your smile, healthy's in style. Are your McLean showing?
McLean's Plus,
toothpaste, an advanced health program, the strong, white, healthy teeth. McLean's Advanced Fluoride Formula gives you 1. Boosted fluoride action. 2. Helps remove plaque. 3. Proven protection. McLean's Plus. Strong, white, healthy teeth.
Recognize somebody you know? Somebody who agrees now that successful investment management is a job for professionals? Or who's anxious about the way inflation reduces her buying power? Or who doesn't realize that his money is deflating at about 12% a year? These are the problems the people at United Capital sort out, advising how to keep your money secure, how to keep it growing. Phone to arrange a personalized investment portfolio.
Welcome back to Newsnight. The debate on the state of Queensland's prison system has continued this week with further allegation by the Prisoners Action Group on the state of the prisoners in our system. And to answer some of these allegations this evening, the Minister responsible for prisons in Queensland, Mr. Terry White. Good evening, sir.
Hello, Paul.
Is there need for reform, drastic reform of our prison system?
No, I don't really think so. What has to happen is a gradual period of change, and that's what we've been doing in Queensland. If you introduce a dramatic series of reforms in any prison system, you'll run into a great deal of difficulty. And this has been the problem, for example, that they had in New South Wales, where they came in with all these new trendy ideas, tried to turn the prison system upside down overnight. The end consequence of it was that one jail was completely burnt down, 4 people were murdered in Parramatta Jail, recently a prison warder was almost hung, and they're the sort of great behaviour problems that you have. Queensland has had a long tradition of having a well-run prison system, and what has happened over the years, progressive and enlightened reforms have been introduced gradually in concert with the needs of all people involved in the system.
This hasn't stopped the criticism that's constantly come from, say, the Prisoners Action Group, Mr. Kev Hooper, of course, and others.
Well, well, of course, Mr. Hooper is a constant critic, and I think we all know what that's all about. The Prison Action Group have been a very militant group of people. Most of them have got a chip on their shoulder. Most of them don't seem to have any concern whatsoever for the victims of crimes. I'm getting a little bit tired. In fact, I've had a gutful of all this talk about prisoners' rights, and I think it's time the public started to hear a little bit about the victims of these crimes. Now, we've got people who've been raped, murdered, they've had their homes robbed, they've been assaulted at times, and things of this nature. Now, those people have been seriously offended against, and if somebody's convicted of a major crime and sent to jail, well, they have to pay their penalty.
But that doesn't detract from the fact that prisoners do, in fact, have rights. And who is there at the moment to ensure that those rights are observed?
Well, if a prisoner has a grievance, he has a number of avenues to which to approach. Firstly, he can approach the Ombudsman. Secondly, he can approach the visiting magistrate, who are at the prisons regularly. Thirdly, he has avenue to legal advice, and he can have either his own solicitor, or if he hasn't got the wherewithal to pay for a private solicitor, we can arrange legal aid, and that's a regular occurrence. He indeed can write to me as the minister responsible, so he's got at least 5 avenues of which to approach if a prisoner has a legitimate grievance. Now, we've had grievances in the prisons in Queensland since I've been the minister responsible. We always take them seriously, we look into them, and for example, we had problems in the Rockhampton jail in the very first year I was in the ministry. We had a magisterial inquiry, and as a consequence of that, action was taken against both prisoners and prison officers, so that if there is a genuine complaint,